We are back in the Meadow House backyard, and you can see, it looks a little messy right now, but we are making some progress. So we went ahead and defined a lot of the beds. Then we got this edger and started to edge the beds out, but you still need to physically and manually take out some of the grass for the edger to really do its job. So the edger just basically makes an incision around the exact line that you want to edge. I tried it. I suck at edging. I hate it and I suck at it. And so Sandra was doing most of the edging of the bed. And you could see here, I started to use as much of the cardboard as we can muster. I'm almost out of cardboard and we have many more beds to kind of put in, but you could see that bed right there in the front is already finished in the sense that we put the cardboard down and we laid some of our vermicompost. We're basically using everything we possibly can have. We didn't use a seed starter mix. That wouldn't have made sense, but I used it basically as glorified cardboard weights, like paper weights. But I have been using Espoma's raised bed mix and some of their land and sea compost and mushroom compost blend. We need a lot of material here to make these shapes. So I'm using some of our own compost, but the compost is not fully composted yet, so I'm using that as like a topper in some cases. But you can see I started to plant some things in here. So what we really wanted to work with is trees and shrubs first. That's going to be some of our foundational planting. And most of the trees and shrubs are down in this area. And the reason for that is our septic is up here, and you don't want to plant too close to your septic. So hopefully I did not do that. But you can see I have some witch hazels here. This is a mountain ash, I believe, some type of mountain ash, not related to our ash trees, not related to the fraxinus. And I have some medlars and some cercis, some red buds. And this is a beautyberry coming up. This is a Fothergilla that I just planted, and it's called Legends of the Small. So it's one of the smallest Fothergillas. It's in the witch hazel family. And I think this is also another type of mountain ash. Don't quote me on it. And I planted some blueberries in here too. So these are going to be giving us some really nice berries this year. These are actually planted in the ground. And then I put some compost, and then I used Espoma's soil acidifier around this as well. And then I put the cardboard on top and then a layer of bark mulch on top of that. And so these are actually planted in the ground. Same with these, I planted them into the ground. All the shrubs and trees are within the ground. But over here, all the herbaceous material is planted above the cardboard. So this is more of a no-dig method. So I use cardboard and I use a significant chunk of organic material, whatever I can use. And again, this is some of our own kind of composted bark mulch, but it's not that far along, as you could see. So, but I'm just kind of desperate right now. I'm like, I need material. Yeah, so I've planted all the herbaceous matter above the cardboard. So this is more in the no-dig method. But I've also modified that where I dig into the ground, I plant the plant, and then I put cardboard around the root base and then the composted bark mulch above that. So I've used that method more for the shrubbery on the upper part of the house, and it works fine. You get a little bit more grass kind of sticking up that, you know, kind of peeks up because you've dug into the ground a bit more. A lot of these methods work in kind of killing the lawn or killing the grass and then putting something in a bit more biodiverse. So yeah, so this area is going to be a large walk path, or we kind of made it a bit wider so that we could get like a UTV or some type of vehicle through here if need be, and you don't feel like you're too constricted. But here's a path here, and you can see this is some of what we started. So this is another method of like kind of snuffing out the lawn. This will eventually get cardboard over because I don't trust this. You know, this lawn will still start to grow up even though you kind of tossed it over, but this is substrate and we need to get rid of it somehow, so why not build up the bed? So we essentially came in here, with the edger, and then pulled this out. Sonder was hitting it with the King of Spades, and I was taking out and putting it upside down. And you could see that these beds are massive. So like I said, I don't think this is gonna be a 2-year process. I'm even shocked that I got through this for now. And my goal is to at least get this bed planted before the end of the year. I don't really want to start on something and then not have it done. And of course the trees and shrubs are in. So the question is, what do I want to do in these beds? Probably some type of like cool ground cover, but I'm not sure which one. Then the other thing that we have planted, and just watch where you're stepping, this has started to get planted up. What I ended up doing, you can see somebody started to dig in here. What I did is I planted the plants, and because this wood chips could take actually some of the nitrogen out of the plant, what I did is actually take some of that raised bed mix, and I added some biotone, which will act as a fertilizer, give some helpful bacteria. Then I covered it back up again with the wood chips. Somebody was here digging, probably a skunk or woodchuck or something. But this is one of our geraniums. This is our native geranium, but I think it's called Crane Dance. So it's a cultivar. So you can see that it has this like nice burgundy brown red leaf, which is very nice. This peony, which I hadn't planted, is in bloom. Oh, wow. That is, get a whiff of that, Sonder. That is mighty fragrant. Might be too fragrant for me. It smells like a very fancy old lady. Our espalier apples, just to give you an update on them, are looking pretty good. We are getting some leaf damage, probably from some caterpillar. It's not that bad, and they're looking mighty fine. And then I also planted quite a bit of columbine in here. This isn't our native columbine, largely because I'm going with a specific colorway here. This is kind of a deep black, I think it's called Barlow, is the name of the cultivar. And then I have an Estilbe here, which has a nice black, dark leaf. One of our Polemoniums, which is Jacob's Ladder, and this also has this kind of burgundy style leaf. These are, because we already have some milkweeds growing here, this is a type of Asclepias, but it's Asclepias viridis. It's actually not native to New York, but it's native to the United States. Has a really pretty flower, so I figured because we have a lot of these members of the Apocinaceae family, this is more of dogbane, but it acts as a milkweed, might as well start planting some of that in here as well. And then this is a Simicifuga, and you could see, or also known as bugbane, and it's a type of cohosh. Simicifuga, it's now been moved over into the genus Actia, and it gets a very, very tall spike with this white bristly flower on the top, and very beautiful smell, and pollinators tend to love it. That's not our native one, it's a hybrid, so I've kind of been a little bit more liberal here. Like I said, I like to plant a lot of our native species, and I'm not afraid of like hybrids, but if I want to make sure that we have our native geranium and our native cohosh somewhere in the mix. So here I have some more geraniums, and I also have our, if I could find it here, yes, our native anemone here. And this is rhizomatous, so this will spread like crazy. And that's okay for me. I think my recommendation for things that spread is if you are okay with it spreading within this area, then plant it. if you want to control it, then it's just going to be so much work down the line. I actually planted this area out here. You probably can't tell because it's a mad mess with all the grass, but I planted this bank with lots of different spreading plants that I hope will be able to compete with the grass by next year. And then that way we'll have some more herbaceous perennials in with the grasses, but we'll see. That's like a test that we're doing. So yeah, I have some of our anemones, I have some of the columbine, and my idea is for this to be more meadow-esque. And I wanted to prep this bed as a reminder because I'm going to be planting quite a bit of bulbs in the fall. And so that way, springtime comes, we'll have a lot of blooms come April or May, provided that we are not under snow cover. You almost stepped on them. But this is our iris, black flowered iris. So this is not a native one, but I like that black color. So I'm trying to find that in some of the blooms and in some of the leaves. This is also a Lespedeza, which we have growing up in our shrubbery, but this is a different cultivar. This is called White Fountain. So this is a member of the Fabaceae, same as this, I believe. They're both nitrogen fixing. And these die to the ground in our zone. So it doesn't get too big, and it gets these beautiful white flowers really late in the season. And then this is kind of past its prime, but this is a Dicentra spectabilis. It's now in a different genus. It's like Lamphro something or other. But this is our bleeding heart. But this is a bleeding heart that has a white flower. So again, whites, purples, some really deep purpley blacks is what I'm going for. We took some cuttings of our 9-bark, and I will show you videos of this in full sun. I mean, we still have pollinators on it now, but when the sun comes out, you see tens of thousands of various different pollinators, from hoverflies to bee flies to wasps to little native bees to bumblebees to butterflies. I mean, it's crazy, and it's so audible from pretty far away, which is incredible. So this is a very giving plant. We love that we were introduced to this plant in this landscape, and we want to be able to support this plant in the landscape as well. Carrying over into this bed, I'll share a little bit more of what we've planted here. I went to some of our local garden centers, Plantsman. I went to Cayuga Landscape, picked up quite a bit of plants. And this is our blue-eyed grass. You can't really see the flowers right now because it's a little overcast, and they tend to be a little shy when it's overcast. Limomiums, so you can see that I need to still put like a nice layer of mulch on top of this because these aren't planted that deeply. This is on top of cardboard. But I liked the grassy and the bluer leaved varieties, and I like the idea of having a cutting garden. So basically a garden where we could use for cut flowers. And when I saw some of these varieties, I was like, ooh, would be really beautiful, and probably beautiful dried. So this is Cupid's dart, and it's almost like this papery flower. And you can see these heads are like very papery too. So I thought these were really beautiful, beautiful color, like that dark center as well, that dark eye with the yellow stamens. And then I really took a shine to this Achillea. This is a cultivar named Moonshine, and it has these really flat-topped yellow flowers, flatter than our native Achillea. But look at these beautiful feathery bluish-green leaves. So charming. And these don't really spread as much like our regular Achillea. So I think that kind of little drops of yellow, even though I'm primarily going with like purples, all shades of purples, and then whites. I love the idea of just adding some cheery yellow in there just to kind of capture your attention. So I kind of transplanted some of the roses that I had in there to here. And then I also got some extras. So this is a new one. It's kind of past its prime, but this one was called Love Song. So again, it has that kind of lilac lavender shade. And that one I think is Plum Perfect, Coco Loco, Marie Pavi maybe. And then this is a new one. Not sure how it's gonna go, but I did use Espoma's rose tone here, flower tone. I have to probably come in again and fertilize this, but this is pink scotch. So you can see it's really tiny leaved. Hopefully it does well in our zone. And it kind of billows over. It's almost like one of those ground covers. And yeah, and these will grow out. You know, I don't wanna crowd the bed with too many herbaceous plants. I think maybe doing an underplanting of crocuses perhaps, like so these little bulbs that you plant in the fall and won't compete too much. But keep in mind that these are gonna get like maybe 3 to 4 feet wide. So I don't wanna crowd them out. And I also don't wanna have like lack of airflow, because lack of airflow in roses will bring in all sorts of diseases. Let's keep our fingers crossed that they will grow well, and then if not, I'll call up Lee from Der Rosenmeister Nursery. I'll be like, Lee, help me. Our roses are not healthy. And maybe he'll give us a few tips. So yeah, I think this is starting to come together. I didn't really talk much about this garden. I was watering it, but I'm not talking much about it. These are all going to be quite tall herbaceous perennials. So there's some natural looking points through here. So there's like this height in this garden and then the lull. And I'm talking about this garden in the back. There's this like height and a lull, height and a lull. So I'm trying not to plant too much tall stuff in. I'm going to work with the undulations of this back garden. But in this area, I'm planting lots of our native and non-native rus. So you can see this rue. This is called Pink Nimbus. I love how delicate these leaves, almost like maidenhair fern leaves in a way. It reminds me of that. And these will get tall. This one will get like 5 to 6 feet tall and just gets, you know, starts to wave in the breeze. I have some salvias in the mix. If you're familiar with Verbena bonariensis, that's the kind of verbena on a stick plant where it gets those little purple flowers on top on these like wavy little wands. And I have some guaras in here. So these are the windflowers. So a lot of these are really tall and wispy. We're going to be planting some really beautiful tall wispy grasses in here as well. And I think hopefully then it will give this like movement, this rhythm. If you recall in the last video, I was like talking about like rhythm and movement in the garden. And if you're looking from down at the road, what you'll see is these layers of gardens. So you'll see these shrubs and trees, pretty much all deciduous down here, except for a couple conifers on the edges here. We have this weeping white spruce and we have a cupressus over there. But deciduous trees, so you'll be able to see through it. And then you'll see some rose and shrubs with a little bit of an herbaceous layer, and then a large herbaceous layer that you'll be able to see through. That's the key. And then you'll see the back of the garden. So you're really going to see and experience these layers as you're walking or running or biking by. And I think that will just be really beautiful. Same if you're sitting from up here. So you can imagine if you're sitting here on the patio, you're also going to be able to appreciate some of these shapes and these layers. And now you have a direction in this backyard. It's not just some amorphous green lawn. You're gonna have interest all sorts of different kinds of ways. And there'll be height, and there'll be texture, there'll be rhythm, there'll be movement, there'll be flowers, there'll be fruit. So a lot of things that you could experience here that you wouldn't have been able to experience if it was just plain, ordinary lawn. Last thing I'll show you is some of the success of this planter. I mean, the campanulas are really off the hook, and you can see that bumblebee is really enjoying it. Now, this is one of our arbor roses. This will bloom a really beautiful purple as well. But I read that in the first year or two, it actually just sends out more foliage than it does flower. So we might not actually get a flower this year. There's a couple more plants that I want to plant up in here. But our clematis looks like it's past bloom, but I think this will have a second bloom. And we have a clematis that's about to bloom right here as well. So this is one of my new plantings. I took the grass out And I planted a clematis that will get about 4 feet tall. Still plenty of plants. I have like a whole box of plants over here that will need to be planted, but as I mentioned, this is going to be a process and I need quite a bit more mix. Our own vermicompost, the Espoma raised bed mix. I'll be using some of the whatever I can muster to try to finish these beds for the year. But we'll keep on giving you progress here in the backyard of the meadow house as we slowly kill the lawn.
We'll keep plugging away at this garden and others here at Flock as the seasons unfold. And if you stay tuned, you'll get a look at our big barn renovation. And we'd like to extend a special thanks to our subscribers and also our members here at Flock who help support the channel. To find out more, go to our main page and click the join button. We'll see you in another episode.